Hello students, let's study e-commerce. In this we will cover Unit 5. The topic is e-governance models, interface with society. Let's study e-governance and social interface. E-governance models need to be reshaped within the society. This is all the more required in developing countries where information asymmetries are higher and channels to access information are limited. Now, when we talk about a country like India, the information is there, but the access is less because most of the portals are still not connected to the public. Life is difficult at many centers because the information is not available. It is difficult for students and it is difficult for teachers, it is difficult for public also to get the required knowledge. The awareness is low, the education is low. Let's study the e-governance which will solve the problems. There are various models. The basic models are wider dissemination model, critical flow model, comparative analysis model, e-advocacy or the pressure group model, and the interactive service models. We will cover all these models in details in our next slides. Let's study the wider dissemination model. Here the government laws, legislations, notices are generally covered in this model. The local government offices and the officials' information all is given to the public. Government budget, plans and expenditures do have access to the public. The key judicial decisions, that is the state versus citizen decisions, should be known to the public. Government tenders, procurement notices should be given to public. Government employment should be accessible to public. So, wider dissemination model is taking information from wider government areas to the narrow down social interface where the public or the citizens who are impacted and who are the beneficiaries must know the kind of the impact what the government is doing for them. So, this information in form of legal, in form of practical aspects and in form of business aspects should be taken to the public. So, this model basically works on the dissemination of information so that the people can be responsive and can adjust to the kind of the policies and regulations which are floated by the government. The broadcasting model is the part of dissemination model. Now, this model is based on mass dissemination of governance related information into wider public domains using ICTs, that is information and communication technologies. This raises awareness about processes and government services that are available to them and how they can benefit from them. See, when we talk about the broadcasting model, it is information dissemination because here the strategy which is taken by the government or the work or the welfare scheme which is decided and which is framed by the government has to go down, trickle the economy and it has to impact the customer. So, the public information is taken to the citizens through the domains or through the communication technology which enters into the websites and the mobiles of the people. Broadcasting model allows citizen to form an opinion of the government. It is equipped with this information. The citizens can feel more empowered to voice their concerns and influence governance processes to make them more efficient. When we talk about this model, here the people get empowered because they have information, and if they have information they can use to their welfare or they can develop themselves, and this gives them a kind of a individuality and a personality. Now, when a customer is developed or the citizen is developed, he can form a positive opinion for the government. So, even if government is doing positive work for the society, it has to be carried to the public. So, the people are aware of at least what are the efforts which are taken by the bureaucracy and what is done by the government. The impact should be felt and this is much needed by the society. Wider dissemination is through broadcasting, is through public domain, wider public domains and to the global society. When we talk about the public domains, it enters the houses, and when you talk about the houses, all the houses are connected in this electronic village where the total global society is converted into a form of a network of computers where each other is connected to a single node or to a kind of a portal where people share information and react and respond to form a opinion. The next model which will we study is the critical flow model. This is critical is what is the information critical which will form the opinion should be loaded on the websites. This is the corruption information, inquiry reports, scientific research, impact studies commissioned, the company's green ratings, the human rights violations records, whistleblowing. Now, critical is the pulse information which has a kind of a negative impact or which can spoil your brand and image. That is critical information which is generally people do not want to share, even whether it is companies or governments or even people privately who are working in the industry do not want to share that critical information because that spoils the branding of the company or it spoils the image of people in the market. Now that information is being shared through the NGOs and which is coming to the portals and websites by which people are becoming aware and people are taking right decisions and opinions about the companies, how they are looking after the environment or what is the kind of the corruption which is impacting the government machinery. So, if these things are recorded and if people can form their opinion, people who are working in the industry will be more alert. The critical flow model is the broadcasting information of critical value, which by its very nature will not be disclosed by those who involved in bad governance practices to targeted audiences using ICT and other tools. Targeted audience may include media, affected parties, opposition parties, judicial bench, independent investigators or the general public. So, this is easy to understand because if the media has to work in the society or the journalist has to work in the society or if the kind of the judiciary has to work, it needs the recordings or whatever has happened in the past. So, these recordings give an opinion and these recordings give a value of a person in the society. So, this information is now being shared on the online portals which is increasing the efficiency of all the people who are the stakeholders and who form the opinion and who give the verdict to the society. The critical flow model has the public domain by which the information goes to the another wider public domain of the society. The advantages of critical flow model are the model can be used to empower people by comparing cases of bad governance with those of good governance. It is identifying specific aspects of bad governance. It is reasons and peoples behind them, how the situation can be improved. See, whatever is happening in the political strata or whatever is happening in the judicial, everything is important for the life of the people because on the basis of that you try to streamline your operations in the society. So, people can form opinions, they can compare what is good governance and what is bad governance and what are the reasons behind bad governance, who are the culprits and what could be the strategies to minimize those impacts. So, these opinions and suggestions if come to the government and to the society, they can reach to the larger benefits of the public life. Advantages of critical flow model. This model is based on using immense capacity of ICT and social media tools to explore given information sets with comparable information available in the public and the private domain. Now, whatever information is available on websites is still insufficient or it is still less. The information network has to be expanded where the connections to all the strata of the society are important, whether it is the NGOs, the businessman, the government and the public. They need to connect and they need to decide what is good for the society and frame the strategies and suggestions according to the value generated in terms of positive and profits for the businesses and the government policies. The strength of critical flow model. The strength of this model lies in the infinite capacity of digital networks to store varied information and retrieve and transit it instantly across all geographical and hierarchical barriers. It allows citizens to form an opinion of government and its administration based on service delivered to them. The strength of this model is data can be managed and data can be stored. It can be retrieved and tracked to explore and study the cases which have impacted the working of the machinery of the government. So, people can see and suggest what is good for the government. Quality of governance. The quality of service received could be judged in terms of time spent, number of visits required, level of bureaucracy encountered. Equipped with this information, the citizens can feel more empowered to voice their concerns and influence the government processes. The governance processes are difficult because when a welfare scheme is framed for the public, the dissemination to the larger grounds is difficult, because the officers who are generally stationed or officers who are appointed, they are not trained. So, what is the time spent in getting the delivery, or what is the kind of the impact in terms of frustrations which people face should be written, and it should be documented, and it should be given to those officers. So, the processes can be streamlined and made more efficient by appointing the right talent required at right places. We have hospitals, we have railways, we have educational institutes, but most of the institutes, whether it is hospitals not giving quality care to customers, and even educational institutes not giving quality education to the students, is the reason because the staff who is appointed is not able to work at their full efficiency. So, whatever the lack of the talent or the kind of the impact is there, it should be written, and then the processes should be made more processed in terms to give the impact of positive efficiency. The example of critical flow model is India's Central Vigilance Committee, that is www.cvc.nic.in. This is the online filing of complaints against public officials and online exposing of the names of corrupted government officials. The government officers are working everywhere, they are taking high salaries and they are using the government machinery and infrastructure to the best of the interest. But if this infrastructure and the services are not giving benefit to the public life, then what is the use of that government, and what is the relevance of investment, and what is the impact that you waste money. So, if the services are not of the quality, like if a patient goes to the hospital for getting a cure, but he gets the disease from the hospital because the hygiene is not maintained, then why should hospitals be run, and why should investments be there? So, it is the portals which will maintain the kind of the grievances and the complaints and give the solutions to the people, where the corrupted government officers need to be reduced in the machinery and honest people need to take the charge of the industry. Let us study the another model, that is the comparative analysis model, which is the combination of both the public and the private interface. Here the public versus private domain plus the private versus public domain goes to the wider domains, that is both the domains, whether it is the public domain or the private domain, work with each other, and then their working and their standards are being rated, and they disseminate the kind of the services to the wider public views. Based on precedence, information and timeline, what is this comparative analysis model is? This is tracking performance record, financial assets, growth of ministers, electoral candidates information, court rulings and historical archive. So, this is just theoretical, where we try to get the information about the ministers and about the working of the officers, their postings and their addresses and their emails IDs, or we can put the views on the blogs. With and without information is bringing out best and worst practices, cases of corruption and budget irregularities. So, these are the private and the public domains which generally give you the informations regarding the corruption and the irregularities which are happening in the society. Now, let us study the mobilization and the lobbying model, which is building allies, networking and the networks for the concerted action. We have a virtual community and a real community. The virtual community consists of the communities, individuals, networks and interest groups which interacts with the real community, that is the common goal which have the options of growth and development. The mobilization is when all people come together. It is the communities consisting of people, individuals, government, businesses and other societies involved as stakeholders. They interact with the individuals, and these individuals, they form a network of interested people who have a value or who have a say in the opinion and who have a say in the framing of the strategies, can design a common strategy and an accurate, efficient process to go to the wider domains of public. Mobilization and lobbying model is planned, directed, strategic flow of information to build strong issue based allies, solidarity to complement action in real world, often though combination of other models. So, this is the model which is comparative analysis model, works in combination with all the other models, whether it is the wider domain model or the critical flow model. These combine and try to mobilize the resources of the society, which is done in a planned, directed and a strategic way to collaborate all the segments of the societies, where the people who are impacted can have an opinion to frame accurate policies. Now, let us study one important model which is known as the service delivery model. This is user and the service provider, that is the interface between the service provider and the user. The service delivery model is the interrelation and the exchange between citizen and the government, international government, citizens, local government and national government. These are the parameters. Now, what we will study in this model is, this diagram basically shows that you have international governance. International governance is the policies and the frameworks which impact our national governance. That is, if liberalization is there and globalization is there, the government of India has signed treaties with WTO. WTO is the World Trade Organization. So, the business practices which are followed in the international markets have to be followed in India, because you are bound by the rules, regulations and the kinds of the patents and the trademarks which govern the intellectual property rights. So, these practices impact not only the international markets, but they impact the government at central level and at state level. So, the interface between the international government and the state level and the local governments happens through these kinds of the shared information, where the services are designed in relation and derived from those governance models, and the citizen is impacted by the combination of all the impacts by the government at the local and the central level. Service delivery model is the e-government, e-debates, e-ballots, e-procurement of services, e-administration, taxation, parking, tickets and licenses. So, the service or the delivery which is designed for the citizens, it is the e-government services in form of kind of the ticketing, servicing, taxes or debates which is generated by the government portals, but these all are governed by the policies shared at internationally by the e-governance, designed and framed at international level. Online form processing, individual identity, authentication based transaction. This is initiated by the government offices. Suppose you have service X and you have service Y, that you have a government office X and a government office Y, and the citizens impacted are citizen A, B and C. Now, what will be selective service model is that you have selected citizens who will be impacted by the policies or the governance issues of the government. We will see in details how it works. The selective service model is applying for selected government products is like driving license. It is the transport ministries impacted, where you have land registration certificates and the rural development ministries. So, it is not the wider public that information will go to all the candidates, it is people who are interested and people who want licenses related to development or to the other aspects will be impacted. So, the government needs to selectively cater to those services, and they need a kind of a different portal or a different technology to reach the customers. Selective services are payments for government services in form of taxes, license fees, custom duties, online voting, online purchases of government reports and filing of grievance and queries. The paying for each service which the customer is using is different at all levels. If the customer is using a service, he has to pay for it. So, what is the procedure of paying? What is the procedure of getting a grievance? Or what is the procedure where you buy reports and try to work according, because the information is costly and to design information for people requires investment. So, we can take the payments for these reports and we can give the information to the people. One-stop citizen portal model. It is unifying portal that offers full case handling, decision making and delivery for diverse services. Here we have services X which are given by the government offices X. First is, this is one-stop solution given to any citizen, that is citizen A, B or C. That is, any citizen can go to online websites and get those services, because here this delivery of information is easy and any customer can access it. Citizen centered model. Citizen centered model as an entry point to all interactions with the government. It is avenues for making online transactions, making payments for a range of government services. The governance is quite large, the kind of the taxes, the revenues, the registries, the judiciary, the political ballots, the discussions all have come and virtually have gained a kind of acceptance with the public, where people are using these models to get their life benefited. E-services relate to e-advocacy. Mobilization and lobbying model is one of the most frequently used digital governance model. It is global civil society, impacts global decision making processes. E-services have become important and the total global society is connected. And now the kind of the advocacy of these models has become important because people have accepted it and the society is connected. The society is civilized, aware and educated to have the impact of these services in their life and improve the quality of living. Virtual communities. This model is based on setting up a planned, directed flow of information to build strong virtual allies to complement actions in the real world. Virtual communities are formed which share similar values and concerns. These communities in turn link up with real life groups, activities for concerted action. Now, what are virtual communities? These communities are formed through the online data or the online access or through the social media. These communities connect with a common goal. Maybe a one professor in India doing a research on some area of botany, connecting to a person in Africa working with the same area. So, these people can share the kind of the diversity of the geographical barriers and try to study the worth of the animal in both the societies. So, the research is more intensified by the sharing of these virtual communities. These communities are growing and the power is immense. The sharing of information has given us better options of quality, growth and research. The strength of the model is, this model builds the momentum of real world processes by adding the opinions and concerns expressed by virtual communities. The strength of this model is in its diversity of the virtual community, the ideas, expertise and resources accumulated through this virtual world of networking. So, when you have a virtual world, first is ideas are shared, the diverse cultures get connected, the diverse resources get converted into a kind of a process or a suggestion or a strategy which can collaborate wider stakeholders of the society. The mobilization of resources. This model is able to mobilize and leverage human resources and information beyond geographical, institutional, bureaucratic barriers and use it for the benefit of society. See, even if the kind of the government domain is not able to do goodness for the society, but then you have private domains who are giving solutions to the people to solve the problems. Now, it is very easy to get the rating of any university, hospital or the addresses or what are the reviews related to the service quality given. People can read the FAQs, that is the frequently asked questions, and can decide or try to streamline the procedure of getting the services. So, it has become easy that the virtual communities and the mobilization through virtual networks has made life simple for people. The interactive service model is the consolidation of the other digital governance model. ICTs have potential to bring every individual into a digital network and enable interactive flow of information among them. It can be two ways or multiple ways. So, ICT, that is the information and communication technology, has connected one to many and many to many. all the communities into network, giving digital power to each individual in the global society. You are connected to anybody in any part of the world. Potential of ICT, this is participation is direct and it can bring greater objectivity and transparency, decision making process, give a greater feeling of involvement and empowerment. Individuals are willing to engage in the governance process. So, if you have the impact of these technologies, people are more empowered, more aware and more educated. This is, they have an opinion in every process which is designed by the government, because you have the right to say yes or you have a right to reject it also. So, this is the great power in the hands of the people to have opinions for whatever is done for them. Now, let us study the summary of this lecture. In this lecture, we have studied the e-governance models. The models basically relate to the impact in terms of wider dissemination, the critical flow and the kind of the basic model which is related to comparative analysis, and the e-service model or the e-advocacy model. Now, when we talk about the wider dissemination or the broadcasting model, it is taking information of government from the government portals to private hands or to the public. This is the information, if is shared, can give an opinion to people to frame a kind of basic benefit which people want to take, or it is the welfare given to the people. The critical flow is to generally analyze the corrupted officers and have their names on the websites. The comparative analysis basically takes the combination of all the models and tries to share with the stakeholders. The virtual communities have become important and they are working in a network society to share information. So, all the models are important. The e-governance is impacting society in a bigger way. The global society is getting connected. I hope the students must have understood the concept in a better way. Thank you, students.